Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Good morning, and it is a great day to college football season. It's starting to feel like it a lot more and more when you're out and about. Cooler mornings, cooler days. Sun's going out earlier every day, but it is college football, and getting to watch on SEC Network, SEC Now, over and over and over. How many times, Jimmy, can they show the same stuff? If they need content, man, Sidelines would love to be on SEC Network. We'll see what happens with that. But Jimmy Hodge is with me. Rob Brown, we're broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Check them out on the website, redriverfordtoyota.com. Over 700 used cars and trucks and SUVs. Great inventory. And if the trade-in is something you need to do, they're probably the best values in 20-plus years. It's what Justin Wynn, the general manager, tells me. That's just the market right now. It's not always that good, but it is now. They will deliver anywhere, okay? Just remember that. We'll be with you for the next 2 hours talking college football. We have a great lineup, got a stacked lineup. Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com starts off. Dan Mathews, 680 The Fan. Southern Sports Today with Chuck Oliver over in Atlanta. Executive producer will join us. Top of the second hour. Jimmy Hyams checks in from Knoxville, longtime sports writer for the Knoxville News Sentinel. Knows Tennessee really well. Going to be checking in. And then Jacques Doucet down in Baton Rouge, Channel 9. We'll check in what's going on with LSU. And, hey, where's Keyshawn Butte today? Who knows? He'll know better than anybody. And in the final segment, Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, checks in from Dallas out in Texas. His thoughts on the game between Alabama and Texas, the state of college football in the state of Texas, the SEC, and around the country. Mitch, going into last Saturday's Kentucky at Florida game, you and I had talked about it on your show, on this show, and I felt Kentucky had to prove a lot, that they weren't as bad as they looked, being able to only run for 53 yards against Miami of Ohio. They went down and played a really solid game against Florida. This time of the year, until about the fifth week of the season, there's no reason to really have rankings. But that being said, Florida was ranked number 12, so that's a good scalp to put on your wall if you're Kentucky or anybody. Florida, in a first year of Billy Napier, everything was in their favor, but I kept thinking, like you did, Kentucky would want to come down and prove, hey, we're better than you think we are. And I think they left, hey, we are. Will Levis, solid quarterback. A lot of good things happening for Kentucky football. And it's Tennessee, Kentucky. They'll play October 29th. A lot of football to be played before then. But do you feel like Kentucky is as good as a lot of people, predicted in the preseason?
Rob, thank you so much for having me on. It's a big week. Memphis, Arkansas State this weekend. Kentucky with a big win. And to answer your question, I do think Kentucky's as good as they seem to be. But as a native Kentucky fan and as a Kentucky kid, you always get a little leery. You always get a little on the side of the worrisome, because you never know with Kentucky football. You never know what's going to actually happen. Tennessee's a tough team. They got a great quarterback in Hendon Hooker. But with Kentucky and Mark Stoops, you just got to take one game at a time. Congratulations to Mark Stoops in accomplishing the all-time winningest coach in University of Kentucky history. So a lot of great things happening in the Bluegrass right now.
Well, you think about it, how big the transfer of Will Levis from Penn State as a quarterback, what that means for Kentucky. And I don't know where he ranks, because he's got to play this season, but he's going to rank up there pretty high with the better players ever to wear the Kentucky blue. And you're talking about in the SEC, this league, and in the East, I think, is making a move. They're trying to prove, hey, we're good too, because the West gets all the attention. But you look at Georgia, no doubt. Now they will play. Kentucky will host Georgia November 19th. But you look at this Kentucky team. No Chris Rodriguez. Cavassier Smoke has been banged up. You've got, receivers. I'm not going to bore you with details, but I'm looking at the big picture because I don't care about talking about every position and all that stuff these guys do on TV when they're showing with the telestrator and trying to talk all this fancy stuff. I know it, but I don't talk to my clients about scattergrams and 200-day moving averages either. Cliff note version for you. You think Kentucky can end up, are they good enough to go all the way in the East?
Are they good enough? Absolutely, Rob, and especially now that Kentucky just got the news yesterday that Chris Rod will be back against Ole Miss on October 1 there in Oxford, Mississippi. That's a big addition for the University of Kentucky Wildcats. As far as being good enough, obviously they're good enough, but as of right now, and I told my boss this yesterday, Georgia's the best team in the country. There's no doubt about it. There is absolutely no doubt that Georgia is the best team in the country right now. Kentucky still has to get that monkey off the back, and if you're Kentucky, focus on Youngstown State this week, and you got a good Northern Illinois team next week, and then you have the showdown with the Ole Miss Rebels in Lane Kiffin there in Oxford, Mississippi.
Quick one. Memphis has won 44 games, 20 losses in the last 5 years. Right now, but they're 1-1. They're 45-21, 37-13. Good victory on the road at Navy this past weekend. Arkansas State, year 2 under Butch Jones. Year 1 was a disaster because Arkansas State's won a lot of games. You had Blake Anderson there before him who left to go to Utah State out in Logan, Utah. They won 11 games last year. Before that, look at all the coaches. You've had Hugh Freeze, Gus Malzahn's been there. There've been a bunch of them. Even Brian Harsin was there for 1 year. Hopefully he'll make it for more than 2 at Auburn. But I'm looking at that game real quick. What are your thoughts? Memphis had better pack the Liberty Bowl if they want to even be considered for the Big 12.
Rob, what I've heard from a lot of Memphis fans around the program is the game is close to being a sellout. I just published I'm gonna have like 4 preview articles, and we've also got a Memphis baseball article coming up that we'll talk. There's an exciting game that I would like to talk about coming up in November for fall ball. But as far as the matchup with Arkansas State, Memphis needs to realize this is not your grandpa's Arkansas State team. This is a very solid program that has the potential to win the Sun Belt Conference this fall. They're going to have to compete with App State. They're going to have to compete with Coastal and Marshall and all those other teams. But this Arkansas State-Memphis game is a sneaky good game. I'm looking to Seth Hennigan to have another big game. Arkansas State struggles in their secondary. Hennigan picked apart Navy. He picked apart Mississippi State in the second half of that game against the Bulldogs. I like Seth Hennigan to have the advantage over Arkansas State, but it's going to be a close one. Last year, Rob, you and I were there. Memphis got the edge 55-50, but it was close last year.
Yeah, it was like a rugby scrum. It was, so many points, and and the Sun Belt right now. They're getting a lot of attention, and they should. And I watched some of the Appalachian State. I tell you what, you look at all these things that are out there all over social media about yell practice and at A&M, the stuff they were saying about Appalachian State. Not that doesn't go on. People are appalled at people. You think Auburn and Alabama don't say things about one another that aren't very nice, or every rivalry. That's college football. That stuff's all in fun. But then again, those white suits, they look like orderlies at the nervous hospital. I don't get that. But anyway, I'm with you.
Rob, can I say this about Texas A&M? I don't know if this will probably upset somebody, but Texas A&M often looks like a cult right now with the way that they're yell leaders and it's a weird. I don't necessarily like it because it is so weird. It's a cult down there. But man, what a backfire that was. App State. I love my Sun Belt. Everybody knows who follows my show and follows what I do. I've been predicting that App State win over Texas A&M. I've been predicting the rise of the Sun Belt. And honestly, Rob, this is going to be a side note, but if I was Memphis, I would be doing everything I could to get into the Sun Belt Conference right now.
Yeah, get into a conference that fits you. If it's not the Big 12, don't waste your time. But I think Dr. Hardgrave's mission is to get them into a big time conference. And the Sun Belt, just out of pure location, is just set up for success. Jimmy, jump in here. I know you are a fan of the Sun Belt, as is our regular guest we have now with us, Dave Schultz down in Mobile, the Sultan of the Sun Belt. But I'm with Mitch and Jimmy. You have been all over the Sun Belt for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, that opening weekend 2 years ago should have sent a message to anybody in college football that the Sun Belt was a very solid conference. And again, they've shown an ability to do a great job in locating players in the transfer portal. And lots of times you have to kind of look ahead and realize that some of these guys that you were would be able to come out of nowhere to sign, and you clearly didn't, but you've been tracking those players at some of these larger schools to see how they've been progressing. But you notice certain guys that aren't playing that much, and it's no fault of their own. They might be playing behind future NFL players at these Power 5 programs, or their particular position might be really deep and they're just been lost in the shuffle. And all these schools have done a great job bringing players that fit that description into their programs. And on top of that, I think the most underrated aspect of the Sun Belt is just how good these coaching staffs are, because they've done a great job in getting these transfers to adapt very quickly and be very effective, and really being significant factors in their success. I mean, I'm talking about from opening day. And I think the closest thing we had to this before the transfer portal really became such a significant part of college football was Bill Snyder at Kansas State. You know, he exclusively relied on transfers from junior colleges. But the problem with that was many times it would take a junior college player up to half a season or maybe even a full season to really adapt to playing at the Power 5 level. And I really put the Sun Belt literally at that doorstep of a Power 5 conference. And in some cases, maybe those junior college players, it would take them early in the second year to really get to where that coaching staff wanted them to from a development standpoint. And on top of that, you only got those guys for 2 years, whereas, you know, in the FBS, I mean, you get a guy after his freshman year, and maybe he didn't even play 4 games. So, you know, you could count that as a red shirt. You can get guys for 4 years now. So it's been a totally different situation. But again, it's really been impressive just to see how strong the Sun Belt is. But as far as Memphis goes, I totally agree with the goal of Memphis administrators to try to get into the Big 12, because I just think that just Memphis being an urban school in a large city, it really fits in. I think with a Power 5 conference situation, and especially in basketball too. I mean, I think they would be out of place in the Sun Belt from a basketball standpoint.
Just because of the size.
But again,
the size of the college towns.
But we'll just have to wait and see what happens with them. But they have to just really focus on this football season, because this is a really important year for Silverfield. And I thought they got a really big break in the schedule by getting Navy in the second game after that state loss, because they just didn't look very good. And fortunately for them, I think this is Nia Matalolo's weakest Navy team in his 17 or 18 years there now. So they have a chance to build some momentum, and I think it's really important for them to really have a strong outing this week and you know, again, just build some confidence coming in toward the mid portion of the schedule.
Yeah, Mitch, I'm with. I hear what you're saying about the Sun Belt, but I think about the Big 12. You're right. Big city.
Robin, but the thing about it is, you know, and I've been a big advocate, you know, I love the city of Memphis. This is my home. This is where I went to school, you know, and everything, where a lot of my family went, where I met my wife. And the thing about Memphis, though, is we're going to have to get this crime under control. If we're going to be considered a desirable place for some Big 12 football, we're going to have to get the crime under control in this city. We can't be having people running through rampages of shooting up the place, and
Nobody can. Yeah.
we can't have that. You don't have
Yeah.
that in the Big 12. You look at those college towns in the Big 12, they don't have that type of crap. We got to get our politicians got to be on board. Our school administrators have got to be on board. If not, if we're not on board, I'd rather just, say, hey, we're not going to be in the Big 12, but let's put all of our money in either the American or the Sun Belt right now. But first and foremost, Memphis has got to change the perception around this city before we can even think about getting into a bigger conference.
Well, and I'll say this, we're going to take a break here in just a few seconds, but Dr. Bill Hardgrave came up here, and I know he's on a mission to get Memphis in a big conference. I think it's going to be the Big 12, but the Sun Belt is a lot more like the SEC, more college towns, smaller towns. But man, what I think is happening, guys, is I think the memo was received, and it was received in a positive manner. Get your program, build your programs up. Everybody now is fighting so they can say, don't leave us behind. I don't want to go to 2 or 3 big super conferences and hell with everybody else. I don't want that. That's not good for college football. Why do you think college basketball is so popular? Why in March do we have March Madness? They have a trademark on that. It's because everybody thinks they've got a chance. That is really important. Again, you got to work hard. Nothing's going to be given to you. But that's why we love sports, okay? We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. Kicks 96.3. Everybody listening in Central Alabama, Lake Martin, over in Atlanta, and all over the place. We'll be right back with more.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Mitch, this is a great discussion because Big 12, Sun Belt, whatever it is, your fan base has got to understand you can't just, do the cafeteria fan model. That is, you just pick and choose the games you want to go to. I mean, if you're not going and you've got tickets, get them to somebody that will, because the bottom line is you got to have support. You got to have money that makes everything work. The money that the Sun Belt gets, the money that the AAC gets, it pales in comparison to what they get in the Big 12, which pales in comparison to what they get in the SEC and the Big 10. I think ESPN, by bowing out of the Big 10 negotiations, guys, has a lot of money they're looking to spend somewhere, maybe in the Big 12. I'm sure they're going to spend some of it there. I got to think they're looking at the Sun Belt going, wow, here it is again. Look what happened last weekend. There's a long season to go, but you're looking at a market of fans out there, the Sun Belt, which is kind of overshadowed in the SEC footprint. But you probably got a lot of fans that would watch if you showed more of their games. That's why I think we're going to have an all college football network going forward, Mitch. Somebody's going to come up with it. Could be Apple, could be Google, but somebody with a lot of money. Could be Elon Musk.
Rob, I think that's a very good point. And the thing about the Sun Belt is, and a lot of people don't realize this, a lot of the Sun Belt fans are actually Southeastern Conference football fans.
Correct.
That just can't afford to get back to their alumni. A lot of those people would either, like, let's take myself, for example. I grew up a Kentucky and Memphis fan, but I could not personally afford to go to the University of Kentucky. And that was always the deal. Like, I went to Memphis, very proud to go to Memphis. My degree says the University of Memphis. It's the same thing with a lot of these Sun Belt fans. You go anywhere to like Mobile County, you go to Baldwin County, you go to Jonesboro. A lot of those people grew up Razorback fans, Alabama fans, Auburn fans. They didn't have the money to go to Alabama or Auburn, so they went to a South Alabama, stayed closer to home. They got their degrees, and a lot of people are like myself who can't get up to Lexington, Kentucky every weekend. So they go to a Memphis game to cheer on their local hometown Tigers. Same thing with South Alabama and Arkansas State. And Rob, you kind of hinted at it, but I will say what I'm really excited about. We saw this with Memphis this past week of Memphis baseball. Yesterday, the University of Tennessee announced that they're going to be doing like a series with the University of Memphis. The first game will be on November 6th and Pringles Park there in Jackson, Tennessee. They're going to be doing a fall ball game. I'm going to be there. I'm trying to work out some details, see if I can be the title media sponsor and all that kind of fun stuff. But Memphis and Tennessee will now be playing in baseball. I think it's going to be one of those things when Tennessee travels to Memphis for the weekend series. It'll probably be at AutoZone Park, and obviously Memphis will be traveling to Lindsey Nelson there in Knoxville. But it's those type of games for those secondary programs like baseball, softball that I'm very excited about with the new current administrative staff at the University of Memphis. They just hired a new baseball coach, Carrick Jones, who came there from Perfect Games. So a lot of great things are happening in Memphis. We just got to get this crime underneath control. And Rob, I'm going to say this on the record on your show. I've said it on mine. I am committed to being a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. I want to get in here and I want to get my hands dirty. I want to help fix the city and I want to help be a part of the solution because I love Memphis that much.
Yeah. There's two ways to look at it. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to leave. I'm going to give up. Or you can say, I'm not leaving. The scumbags can leave. That's how it works. I mean, that with anything, you can run. There'll be a problem somewhere else, or you can stay and fight. But you got to have a lot of people agreeing with you. I agree with that. Jimmy, in talking about this, I like what you said about the big media markets. I mean, look at UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU coming into the Big 12. That's a great fit. And I also think Mitch is spot on. It is exactly true. These Arkansas State, there's so many people that go to Arkansas State as an example, and they love the Razorbacks. But they go to the Arkansas State games, but they're finally going to start playing each other in 2025. Jimmy, what about all these schools start playing each other? You're seeing it. I think that's great for fan interest.
Well, you just have 12 games on the schedule. I mean, you're going to be scrambling and competing against other schools to try to get these big money games against a Power 5 program to finance your other sports and your athletic programs. So, there's a lot of intangibles involved in that. But what the Sun Belt has done, though, is that they've established themselves as a very competitive Division I football league. And there are nothing but pluses involved with that. And I think Memphis just has to just focus on staying solid in football and improving year by year, because I'm thinking you're going to have at least a 2-year, maybe a 4-year window to audition for a Big 12 spot, because I think that expansion time frame is going to take place within the next 4 years. I think they're just going to wait to see how things develop with the 4 recent additions, to see how they're fitting into the league and the scheduling and all of that. And then after the first couple of years, look at, adding a couple of more teams. So, again, it's just a really interesting time in college athletics. But I did want to go back real quickly, though, to Kentucky's performance against Florida. It was really impressive. And I think the Wildcats had a lot of motivation behind Roman Harper's prediction that not only would Florida win, but they were going to be dominant. And he labeled Kentucky as soft. And Kentucky disproved pretty much all of those observations. And they did what really good teams do. They took advantage of big plays. They had the pick six, and then they had the amazing interception by the defensive lineman who returned it down to the 6-yard line. Kentucky converted that into a touchdown. And then Key made a great touchdown catch on the long pass from Levis, in which he got his body in between the defender and the ball, screened the defender off, and made a great catch. And that was really the difference in the game. And Kentucky up front on both sides of the ball was very impressive. It was a well-earned win, and how ironic that this was the third victory over Florida for Kentucky in the last 5 years, and it broke Bear Bryant's school record of 60 wins. I think Stoops now sits at 61 wins as the all-time winningest football coach in Kentucky. It is to win at Kentucky. But yet, obviously, if Coach Bryant would have stayed there longer, they would have had a lot more wins. But still, it's a very impressive accomplishment by Stoops and his staff.
Jimmy, and those are great points. And Mitch, before you go, that is the significant Bob Stoops, what he's done at Kentucky, and or Bob Stoops at Oklahoma and Mark Stoops at Kentucky. The mom is the two winningest coaches at those two schools. That's amazing. Look, I know you got to get to work, get to meeting. Let people know how they can follow you. This is great stuff. I think that's a really cool deal you just broke about Tennessee and Memphis playing in baseball. We'll talk more about that in the coming days, and I'll be on with you tonight. But Mitch, you're out there breaking stories, man. That's what True Grit journalism's all about. Keep doing it. Pay attention to details. That's what we all got to be doing. But love having you on here.
Rob, thank you so much for the kind comments. Jimmy, good to talk with you. Follow me on the website, themitchdavisshow.com. Just posted one of like 3 Memphis previews for this weekend. We're going to have Rob on at the Mitch Davis Show on Twitter tonight. Rob and Miss Katie Pate from Appalachian State. Going to be talking App State. We'll be talking Sun Belt. Rob's going to be on the second hour. Sorry, Rob, you got to take the second hour tonight because we got to talk about App State in the first segment.
Look, I'm going to be listening.
I'm excited, man. This is great, and a lot of great things happening. I'm really excited. November 6th. I'm gonna be doing a lot of trash talking because I graduated from the University of Memphis, and everybody who knows that we don't like the team in orange, that other team on the other side of the state. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, and can't wait to get Jake Nichols down here, my Tennessee buddy who writes for the rival site, writes for a newspaper up there. So should be a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for having me on. Go Tigers this weekend. Beat Arkansas State. I will see y'all tonight, Rob.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Mitch. All right. Going to get ready now. Dan Mathews will be checking in just a second. Executive producer, Southern Sports Today over in Atlanta with Chuck Oliver. That is a great show Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. All college football. Kind of this time of year, we are heavy college football, Jimmy. But before you know it, we'll be getting our basketball guys rolling again because practice will start in October, and that season's going to be on us before we know it. I think what I love about this discussion, Jimmy, is it's about college football. There's, like you said, we got the SEC. That's our footprint. We love it. Sun Belt, AAC, Gulf South, these different conferences. You want to see fan bases want to make sure that they don't get left behind. But nobody is going to give you anything. You got to get out and support your team no matter what. And I think social media makes it very easy for people to just give up. Now, I want to ask you real quick before Dan gets on, Jimmy. And when Dan comes on, I'll just cue you up. But Texas A&M, I watched on SEC Now, Roman Harper, Matt Stinchcomb with Alyssa Lang talking. Is this a must-win for A&M when number 15 Miami comes to town Saturday? All games are must-wins at this level. That's the thing about it, and everybody wants to get all caught up in, you got to win this game or that game. Ask any coach in the SEC. Lose any game, that's the big game. Dan Mathews is on with us now from over in Atlanta. Dan, we're talking about the A&M game against Miami coming up Saturday. A&M, that's who they are. That we saw who they are in these first 2 games. Haynes King, Jimmy's pointed this out since back in the spring for the last couple of years. Not a great quarterback, but let's talk about situation at A&M and then LSU, and then work our way back to Atlanta and the Georgia Bulldogs right there in your backyard, and a little, if you've got time, Georgia Tech and Ole Miss.
Yeah, sure. I mean, where do you want me to start?
Well, let's get started with A&M. The culture out there of Jimbo Fisher, the big recruiting class, the NIL, the sparring with Nick Saban. I mean, all that's just all stuff that happens with colleges. But what is it going on, do you think, with A&M? They have all this talent. They have more money than anybody. The NIL deal, we know about it. Yet they got a team out there that, along with Colorado, Boston College, Virginia Tech, and Iowa, they have the 5th worst offense in America.
Yeah, it's not good for Jimbo Fisher. I mean, especially too when you factor in that's what he is. I mean, that'd be kind of like if Kirby Smart's defense was one of the worst defenses in the country. It's kind of like, well, you don't really have an excuse. That's kind of who you are.
Yeah,
that's what you pride yourself on being. So I think that's number one. I mean, they're really young in some very key areas, but that's not an excuse. I mean, you bring up the way that they've recruited. When you recruit as well as they have, you should be playing better than they are. And, I think that feeds into it. But also, too, credit's got to go to Appalachian State. I said before the season, and I think I even said it on here, that was going to be a tough game for them. I mean, that's a program that, A, won 10 games last year, but B, has a very experienced quarterback in Chase Bryce. So, I mean, he wasn't going to be wowed by the moment of going into Kyle Field and playing that game. That wasn't going to be a huge task for him. I think the other part of it as well is it's kind of just building that culture and belief and having that. And I don't think that they've necessarily built that up yet. All that said, though, you're one of the highest paid coaches in college football. You're supposed to be an offensive guru, and you supposedly have all this young, inexperienced talent, but still the last part is the key word. You have talent. So you need to be doing better than you're doing. It happens for everybody at different times. I mean, we've seen some coaches who are able to have immediate success. We've seen some coaches who had to kind of build that up over the years. I mean, Dabo Swinney is probably the most recent example, but then once he was able to get a program-defining player in Deshaun Watson and win a national title, he was kind of able to change that narrative. So Jimbo has won the national title. I think that's why he is still high up on people's lists. But at the same time, though, too, I think this has got to be a prove-it week for Haynes King. If he doesn't get it done this week, I think you got to think about Max Johnson, or who knows, maybe even think about the future and Connor Weidman and see what they have, because obviously what's happening right now with Haynes King is not working.
Yeah. Next one, let's look at LSU. What's going on in your opinion? You're a lifelong LSU fan, unabashed Astros fan, because we got several members of the hunting club up here from Lake Charles. And by the way, those guys will tell you we cook differently out here than they do in New Orleans. We have nothing to do with them. But anyway, they're all LSU fans. They're all saying, Rob, you got to ask somebody what's going on with Keyshawn Butte. Why is he being a problem, and how much will Brian Kelly tolerate?
I don't think he's being a problem, honestly. I don't really understand where this narrative is coming from with him. I mean, he was frustrated about the first game, but I think there were a lot of people who were frustrated about the first game. I chalk that up to being a competitor. I don't think that he's being a problem. He even showed you in the last game that there's no issues, that he's a guy that wants to compete. He wants to play. He wants to be able to show what he can do on the field. And I have zero issues with guys that do that. I mean, it's this old, where people, just play and don't say anything. I'm sorry. I don't work that way. And I don't mind when guys, voice their frustration. I mean, it's healthy, I think, to do that and to say how you really feel. So, he's still shown that he's a guy that cares a lot about that program. I think if he didn't care about the program, he'd have left after that first game and said, it's time for me to get ready for the draft. But he didn't do that. He was back the following week. He factored in a little bit more last week against Southern, and they're going to need him this weekend against Mississippi State if they're going to pull off that win.
Yeah, and we're about to take a break. We're going to come back with more. I know you got a hard out at 9:45 Eastern, but I wish people would take into account Nick Saban's won 268 games as the head coach at Alabama. Second most of any coach in America, college football coach, is Brian Kelly, 264 wins. Let me say that again. Brian Kelly, second winningest active coach in college football, one of the winningest coaches ever, 264 wins. You know, people that say, go on back up north, hey, this guy is going to be successful. I'm with Jimmy. I'm with a lot of other people. Brian Kelly knows what he's doing. That's why I wanted to ask that about Keyshawn Boutte. And because I don't want a guy that's okay with losing ever on my team. We'll be right back with more Sidelines after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Dan, another one real quick, and then I want Jimmy has got some questions for you. I got to ask you this. You watched Georgia dismantle Oregon, and then a pedestrian win over Samford. They're not going to get too fired up about that. They got South Carolina on the road. The performance, the play so far of Stetson Bennett, he's better than he was last year. Is this calming down any of the Dog fans who keep insisting we're not playing the best quarterback?
I think so. And I think that naturally did it before the season, A, with the national title, but B, with the fact that, when people, I can't stand Stetson Bennett, I don't want him to play anymore, the immediate response was,
I'll take him.
Who do you want to play? And, so whenever, that question is asked, there's no answer because you don't know what you have in Carson Beck. You don't know what you have in Brock Vandegrift or in Gunnar Stockton. So, I think that's something else that helped. And let's be honest here too, the way he played, especially in that first game, that helped a lot as well. So I think you factor all those things in, it's now kind of even the Never Stetson crew out there, the people who, no matter what, thought that, he was a third rail and he was not going to be somebody that can help you take the offense to the level that you need it to be taken to. I think that they've even said, all right, he's our guy. We're going to roll with him and trust him and believe that he can help this team win. And at least the performances early on in the season would show you that that's going to be the case.
Well, he is really, really good. Jimmy, I know you got some questions. We just got a few minutes. Dan's got to be off at 45 after.
Yeah, I wanted to say I'm definitely with you on Boutte. I think he's just a youngster that knows he's an NFL player, and he just expects, I think, to be a more prominent part of their offense, and especially in the opener against Florida State. I don't think they even threw to him until the second half, and then he got especially frustrated on a pass in which he had been open for 2 or 3 seconds, and the read was late. The ball didn't get there, and it ended up being incomplete, and he was openly frustrated. But you personally, I like kids like that expect the most out of not only themselves but their teammates. But I think he's going to be fine, and I think Kelly understands that. But I think it is going to be interesting going forward because Daniels is not a progressions quarterback. I mean, he's going to look for his primary guy, and instead of going to his second, third, fourth options, he is more likely to look for a hole to run because he's a great runner. He's fast, and, he can be very effective that way. But in SEC, it's really critical to to have a dangerous vertical passing game. So that's kind of news at 11, I think, going forward. But with A&M, yeah, I've just always been concerned about Haynes King, just his mechanics in throwing the ball. His footwork's not great, but, you just can't overstate what a bad loss this was, because you're facing an App State team that gave up 63 points the week before, almost 600 yards total offense, almost 30 first downs, and you accumulate 9 first downs, 185 total yards. I mean, I just don't understand really why A&M didn't make a quarterback change during the game, because you obviously needed a spark, and Max Johnson has demonstrated that he can go into difficult environments. 2 years ago at Baton Rouge, in Gainesville, the week before Florida gave Alabama all they wanted in the SEC championship game. He came in there with an LSU team that had like 52 scholarship players, pulled off the upset, and he had the great throw last year to beat A&M. So that's a really interesting situation. But, yeah, you better believe that Miami's a must-win game. You look at A&M's schedule, you get Arkansas the next week at Jerry World. You play a Mississippi State team in Starkville that's really on a roll offensively. And the next week, oh, by the way, you're playing at Bryant-Denny. And then the next week on the road at South Carolina, who has been a surprise, frankly, since Shane Beamer's gotten there. And that's a tough place to play. Ole Miss, Florida, it goes on and on and on. So they really have to win this game.
Dan, I know you got a few minutes to respond to that. That's good points.
Yeah, Jimmy, there's just a lot to go off of there. What exactly do we want to go off of?
Well, we just A&M. What do they do? Do you have? Do they make the move to Max Johnson, who again has shown that he doesn't turn the ball over very much? And I think that's what A&M needs right now, because we know they have the athletic ability and the skill players, but I think those guys have to develop some confidence just from a team standpoint. Again, when you're coming off a 9 first down, 185-yard total offense performance, and you only had the ball for 19 minutes of a 60-minute game.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan. I know you got a few minutes.
Yeah, I think that part of it is Jimbo picks a guy, he sticks with a guy, and he wants that guy to be able to develop. And I think that with him, last year with Calzada and Haynes King, he felt like that King straight up won the job. So give him an opportunity, and he didn't really get that chance. So give him a chance again this year. He felt like he won the job. Jimbo Fisher's like any other coach. I always love this, notion that, a guy is playing because the coach just wants to spite people. Coach doesn't want to buy out. They want to be able to coach. They want to be able to make the money that they earn. So if they're going to be able to do that, then they're going to play the guy they feel like is the best player. I think he still feels like that Haynes King is that guy. So that's why he's got him in there. I do, wonder what it's going to take for him to decide to go a different direction. Probably if you see an offense that's not moving the football, then probably you get that again on, just being able to, move on and go with a different guy. So, I think that's what's going to precipitate the change. It's not going to be just, moving off the guy because he has a bad quarter or two.
Well, he admitted after the game that he was contemplating giving up play calling duties. And he also said that he's going to evaluate every aspect of this team. So I think it's obvious that he's seriously considering it, and rightfully so.
Dan, I know looking at all this stuff, it really gets down to it's early, long way to go. What do you think is going to happen in the SEC West? I like Arkansas as the challenger to Alabama.
Well, I'll go ahead and match you with Arkansas, and I'll go ahead and throw in Mississippi State. At least what we've seen the first couple of weeks. And, it's year 3 of Mike Leach. Whenever it's been the third year, wherever he's been at Texas Tech or at Washington State, that's when the offense has seemingly taken the next step. And they've got what was it? 17 returning starters, I think, on both sides of the ball. So you got a lot of experience. You got a really good quarterback in Will Rogers that's been part of that system. And Mo, by the way, had been part of the system in high school with his dad. So, I think this weekend's going to tell a lot. I think if Mississippi State's able to pull off that win in Baton Rouge, then they need to be taken very seriously. But no, you're right about Arkansas. I mean, that's a team that's shown two things. Number one, they can score some points. And number two, they're physical. Those are two things that, at least early on, look like it could be a challenge to Alabama. And, oh, by the way, that game's going to be in Fayetteville this year. So could that maybe be shades of 2014 Ole Miss, Alabama? Maybe it could. That's a possibility. So you got to like what Sam Pittman's built over there.
Dan, I know you got to go. Tell people how they can follow you.
At Dan Mathews ATL on Twitter is how you follow me. I'm 1T in Mathews. Also, follow the Chuck Oliver Show at Chuck Oliver Show on Twitter. And we're going to preview the Auburn-Penn State game today. Kevin McGuire from Nittany Lions Wire, he's going to join us. And also, to your good buddy, J.G. Tate from auburnsports.com. He's going to come on and talk about the 2-0 Auburn Tigers. So that's what we got to look forward to today.
Hey, Dan, thank you so much. Have a great day. Look forward to having you on next week.
All right. Appreciate it, buddy.
You bet. All right, Jimmy, let's go back here real quick because I know we had Dan. I was just trying to make sure we got him off at a quarter till it was against a hard break there. But I want to go back to what you said, about Keyshawn Boutte. I'm not criticizing. I guess I get mad, when you're getting NIL money, a coach is going to rip you a new one. Your sponsors are, I can tell you that right now, they're going to come after you because now you're getting paid. When you have a job and you're an employee of a company, you're expected to work. Okay. And throw loyalty out the window, and there's not much loyalty, and you got to be loyal to yourself. But if you're working for a company, you ought to have pride that you're working for them. If you play for LSU in Keyshawn Boutte's case, I just don't like guys who publicly air grievances via social media. They're told not to do that by their coaches, but some of them do it. They think they're above the law. We've got enough of these prima donnas in the NFL. We don't need them. You better get a handle on that stuff at a young age. But I'm with you, Jimmy, all the way. I want guys that are competitors. I don't want guys that are okay with losing. Because if you got a locker room full of guys after a loss that are over there laughing and cutting up and trying to get dressed so they can get to the fraternity houses and the parties and all that stuff, I don't want them on my team. I want guys that are madder than you know what. And they're trying to get better. Yeah, they can go out and have a road soda and do whatever, go to the parties. But I want them, if losing is okay with you, then you're going to lose a lot. That's going to carry over into business and everything else. So I just want to make sure for the record. And I think Keyshawn Boutte is an incredible talent. He knows, but right now, his rear end belongs to LSU. I don't care. I'm so tired of this. What happens now in college football? Guy has a true freshman comes in, has a good first game or two against, it doesn't matter who they're playing. Everybody starts telling them, and I'm telling you, their friends, their handlers, their posses, their people around them. Oh, you're going to be in the league in 3 years. Really? Come on. Maybe 1% of the guys are going to make it. That's a very, very small number. All right. So we gotta really think about, are you going to get just a few games as a true freshman, sophomore slump, and then after the first 3 or 4 games of their junior year, they just quit and they quit trying. They pull up short on a 4th and 3. They get 2 yards and pull out of bounds. They don't even have field awareness. I don't want those guys on my team. I want Stetson Bennett. That's what a college football player is supposed to be. I don't want the guy that cares only about himself and is out there, telling you how great he is. I want the guy and anybody that opts out of a bowl game, quits. That's what it is. It's quitting. They're not invited back to the reunion. That's just my take. Jimmy?
Well, I don't think last year was a step back for Boutte. I mean, Alabama wanted him badly, and he was really rumored to go there until LSU really stepped up at the last minute with strong NIL offer. And like I've said, I don't have a problem with the guy who has a competitive spirit and a personality that clearly indicates he wants his team to be successful. And Brian Kelly said as much after the game. And I know head coaches and coaching staffs have members that have different personalities, but Kelly is fully aware that he thinks this guy's a very important part of his team. And he's just getting started at LSU, and I know Kelly feels that as this season moves along, that they're going to be much, much better by the end of the year, and I think he feels Doucet is going to be an important part of it. But you've got a lot of different personalities out there. If everybody was the same, it wouldn't be very interesting. So, we'll just see how it goes from game to game.
Yeah, and looking at this LSU team, Texas A&M, both of them right now are 1-1. But LSU, I mean, they played Southern. That was the first time they'd ever played last Saturday, and they scored the first 5 times Jaden Daniels had the ball. They scored a touchdown. They took him out early. Brian Kelly knew that was an obvious, serious mismatch. But one thing about A&M is you could tell early on in that first game that they played that they were not really that good of a team. I mean, they scored 31 points against Sam Houston State in the first game. I'm just not sold on them. And I don't understand. Again, yeah, that's App State beat the number 6 ranked team in the country. I mean, if the 5 teams ahead of them, Alabama, we say Alabama didn't look great. Give Texas credit. I mean, they know how to play football out there. And Steve Sarkisian had those guys ready. And the ace in the hole that, Jimmy, and I know, anybody that knows football knows, they dedicated and put a statue of Gary Patterson out in front of Amon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth at TCU. Then they fired him. That's kind of like when Mike Gottfried said at the Touchdown Club in Memphis years ago, in 1987, we had a great year at Pitt, and they rewarded me with a lifetime contract, and I was fired a year later.
Well, that can happen when you have different people that take top administrative jobs too.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that was the same guy that had to approve that statue. So yeah, things like that happen, and it's happened, in a number of places, and it's just kind of the world we live in now. But yeah, Gary Patterson did a tremendous job being involved in that defensive game plan, and also Texas came out from the get-go ready to play. And I think, some Alabama fans, and rightfully so, some media figures kind of expressed some concern because this was similar to the Florida game last year when Bama jumped out 21-0, 21-3. And it's almost like they took the rest of the day off, and Florida dominated the rest of the game. And, of course, we all know about the struggles against LSU, Arkansas, and then the Iron Bowl last year. So this is something that Alabama has to get fixed, because I really didn't think that Alabama did a great job of matching the intensity that Texas came out there with. Again, this is what you're going to see going forward with Texas and Oklahoma. The competition's just going to get tougher in the league, and you'd better be ready every time you go out there. But I doubt Alabama's going to play many games where it's 120 degrees at field level at 11 in the morning. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think Oklahoma and Texas coming into the SEC. Texas, well, Oklahoma recruits half the roster a lot of years is from the state of Texas or more. And then they're going to get everybody in the state. But Oklahoma does have a national brand. They have had for a long, long time. All right, we're going to be joined in just a few minutes by Jimmy Hyams, Knoxville News Sentinel, checking in with us, talking about Tennessee. More with Rob Brown, Jimmy Hodge, after this quick break.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Hour number 2 about to get underway. We'll be talking again, checking in with Jimmy Hyams up in Knoxville. Tennessee got that big win over Pitt. That's great. Now they've got Akron this week. Following week, Tennessee will have Florida come into town. Look, this is early in the season. We're already starting to see some trends develop, though. Again, how many times do people have to be told? And coaches, if you don't solve the quarterback mystery in the spring, it just carries over into the summer. And all you're doing when you don't name a starter really is you're just buying time to cover for your lack of development or just poor recruiting. It's all the above. And you look at, the Auburn, Penn State coming up Saturday. I was talking with a very smart one of my folks that covers Auburn for us. Said, I'm picking Penn State in this game. Not that I don't think Auburn can beat them, but if TJ Finley's the starter, and he will be, he's made mistakes, poor throws in the first 2 games. People are going to stack 8 or 9 people up near the line of scrimmage and dare you to beat them with the long pass. And which means it bottles up the running game, whether it's Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, whoever it is. An offensive line at Auburn isn't great, but they're experienced and they're older and they're bigger and stronger. Hopefully they're good enough. But you start looking at if you're what does Penn State lead the nation in? They're one of the top teams in, and that's pass coverage of long balls. So you're going to be putting TJ Finley in a situation where he's got to beat you doing what he's not great at. And the crowd will be there, 90,000 plus at Auburn. It is going to be a great environment. I'm going to the game. But you've got to figure this out. And I'm sitting here looking at Kentucky went and got Will Levis from Penn State. Auburn got TJ Finley from LSU. I got Robbie Ashford from Oregon. I got Zach Calzada. I mean, he's the starter at Texas A&M. And he leaves because he didn't think he could beat out Haynes King. Is it that political where he was going to be the starter? Max Johnson leaves LSU after leading LSU to a game-winning touchdown drive in Baton Rouge at the end of the season, goes to A&M because he has a brother on the team. His brother could have transferred to LSU too. I don't know why he wanted to go out there, but he did. And now Max Johnson isn't on the field. Haynes King is. He's not a great quarterback. I mean, I'm talking, look, Iowa has baseball numbers. They're so bad. A 3.2 offensive rating. The other worst teams in the country are Boston College, Colorado, Virginia Tech, and Texas A&M. Number 1 recruiting class in the country. I don't care. We hear it over and over. These 18, 19-year-old freshmen coming in, oh, they're so much better than the guys 20 and 30 years ago. They're not with fundamentals. They're not with football IQ and football awareness. I don't think they compare to those guys, Jimmy, in the past. They came in ready. They were students of the game. These kids today are coming in, born on home plate, and think they hit a grand slam. They think it's owed to them. They think it's entitled. And yeah, I'm qualified to speak on this because I got 4 kids, and I'm telling you, I don't see A&M. I mean, I love having Olin Buchanan on here because he knows A&M. He loves A&M, covers them, and I bet he's more frustrated than anybody. But you look at Texas A&M, you look at Auburn, they got quarterback issues. And if you're going into your 3rd game, you've got Penn State coming to town. This is a national brand, national powerhouse, top 7 wins all time. They're not going to be intimidated by the Auburn crowd because the game's got to be played on the field. And Brian Harsin knows what he's got at quarterback and what he doesn't have. Jimmy, we got a minute or two before Jimmy comes on, but how's Auburn going to beat Penn State?
Well, they're going to have a lot better quarterback play than they've been having.
Can they get it, though?
I'd
rather you play.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Penn State has 3 quarterbacks that Auburn would love to have.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, really interesting. But I really agree with that first observation that the guy you were talking about had. I think at this point, if you're picking this game, you got to go with Penn State just because of the quarterback edge. And that is not at all to say that Auburn can't win this game. I mean, they very well could. I mean, they might respond to, a boisterous crowd and, they can have some success early and be able to feed off of that. But that's why we play the games. We really don't know. I don't know what the line is. I think originally Penn State was a 1-point favorite, and it's probably going to be a pick-'em game. So it's just going to be a question of who gets it done once they kick it off. But I do believe that, Auburn is going to have to be much, much better offensively to expect to have a chance to win this game.
Yeah, and Jimmy, you look at last year, Auburn played a good game up there at Penn State, got beat, but they were in it to win it all the way to the end. You had Bo Nix as a quarterback. But if Bo started off bad, he got worse. If he started off good, he got better. He's gone. And from what I've seen out of Auburn in these first 2 games, they don't have a quarterback. And they're going to have – somebody's going to have to step up and be the man. But we got the man from Knoxville, Jimmy Hyams, veteran sports writer, host of a sports radio show every day on the Sports Animal in Knoxville. Jimmy, I was fired up. Audrey, my wife, who's a Vol for life, and I were watching that game. Cousin Mark Ham up there. All of us were watching it and talking about it. Great win on the road. Any road win, especially against a Power 5 opponent, is big. Let's talk some Tennessee football.
Well, it was a really nice win for Tennessee. It's the kind of game that, Rob, I think a year ago they probably would have lost. In fact, some of the players even acknowledged that. But this was this the first time I can say under Josh Heupel at Tennessee that Tennessee's defense won the game. The offense went into a funk. They started out slow, didn't score on the first 3 possessions, and then with 5 second-half possessions, they only got a field goal. And the defense in the second half, they were put in harm's way. There was a fumble, a blocked punt. There were 3 possessions Pitt started in Tennessee's territory, and they only got 10 points. And then when Tennessee had to make the defensive stop in overtime, they did it. So I thought it was a really good win for the program, and I think it continues to put Tennessee on pace to try to get to that 9-win total.
Well, you're looking at Cedric Tillman, and you heard what I saw Takeo Spikes on SEC Now Sunday saying Tennessee has the best wide receivers in the SEC, and that's a heck of a statement. Takeo knows football, but man, Hendon Hooker as a quarterback, you've got to think this guy has a much higher ceiling than what we've seen. He's better than he was last year. He's a student of the game, isn't he?
He is, and he's better at reading defenses, and he's got command of the offense. He's got confidence. Now, here's the interesting thing about that, Rob. He's 27 of 42, and I'm like, that wasn't his best. He missed some receivers early. He missed Cedric Tillman, who was wide open. And so what I've come to learn is I'm grading him on the curve. 27 of 42 ain't good enough. He should have been 34 out of 42, in my mind. That's how good he's become. I think he's the second best quarterback in the league to Bryce Young, and I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the country. But I think he did have a little bit of an off game, and yet he threw for over 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns. I think that's how good he's become.
Yeah, and I love the way Tennessee won in overtime. I mean, their secondary is vulnerable, and talk about that as an issue. And then, but Rodney Garner, the defensive line, they are warriors. You know, with Rodney Garner, your guys are going to always play a full 60.
Yeah, and they got that. And Omar Thomas, I think, is the leader up front, along with Byron Young, along with Tyler Barron. I thought Barron played probably his best game in a Tennessee uniform. I thought that was impressive what he was able to do, and they got after Pitt. Now they gave up a couple of big plays. There was a 76-yard run. There was a 57-yard pass to the tight end where he hurdled Trey Flowers. But I thought when the defense had to make the plays, they stepped up and they did it. This is a better defense than it was a year ago. Now, I'm like you. I still have some concerns about the secondary. They gave up 273 passing yards a game last year. It was the worst in the league. But they're giving up 271 this year. So it's not much different. But I do think they have a little bit more. I think they have more depth on defense. But I also think it's hard to replace Theo Jackson and Lante Taylor, your two best defensive backs from last year.
Yeah, Jimmy, we got time for some quick questions. I know Jimmy Hyams has to be off at 9:12 a.m. Central for a staff meeting.
Well, yeah, Tennessee defensively certainly has improved, and they took advantage of the fact that Pitt had lost a number of starting offensive linemen from last year. But that's a problem for virtually every team in college football nowadays, and we all know that the best pass defense there is a pass rush, and Tennessee certainly showed it. Took advantage of Slovis being out in the second half, and Patty was injured, and they're much better. But I was surprised that the Vols, after scoring on 4 out of their last 5 possessions in the first half, were unable to score a touchdown in the second half. I thought they would pull away, and I know Josh Heupel is like every other good coach, wants to get the maximum out of his team, and I know that's going to be an area they're going to be working on going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alex Golesh, offensive coordinator, said it as he met with the media yesterday. He said, we want to be the best offense in the country, and we were not that at Pitt, and that's true. I was very surprised the offense struggled in the second half. There was a fumble that stopped the drive. There was a missed pass to Tillman that stopped the drive. There was a penalty and a sack on another drive. They finally drove down to kick the field goal. That was their 4th possession of the half. And then the last possession of the half, to be honest with you, and I think they do a heck of a job calling plays, but when you hit Hyatt for 3 consecutive passes, I thought you would just keep doing it. And then they ran it and got stuffed, and that kind of ended that drive. So they were not as efficient on offense as I have come to be accustomed to, but that's where I think it says a lot about the program. Again, I think you lose that game last year in a similar circumstance, and to be able to pull it out, I think it says this program's come a long way.
Jimmy, looking now, Tennessee's got Akron coming up Saturday, and that should be, play a lot of people, but again, you go into every game thinking you're in for a full 60. The following week, you got Florida coming to town. Florida's won 15 of the last 16. I know this is one of the big 3, along with Alabama and Georgia, that the Vols have dialed in. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere on the Hill, isn't it?
Oh, it will be for Florida, yes. Now, interestingly, we were talking to, I think it was Solon Page that said yesterday, we don't overlook anybody. He said, we treat everybody like it's Alabama. And so, and you know what? I don't think they're going to have a letdown, and I may end up being wrong, but here's why. I think these players love playing the game. I think they love playing for the coaching staff. I think the offense loves going out there and seeing if they can score half 100. I think the defense enjoys flying around and playing aggressively. And so I think they have, because they have so much fun playing and it's not a drudgery, I don't think they'll have a letdown against Akron. And then Florida, boy, that's going to be massive, isn't it? I mean, that is huge. Florida's had Tennessee's number. They won 16 out of 17. I think Tennessee is going to get the win. You know, we'll see. But I do think that Florida game is going to be huge.
Yeah, and I have said this all along. Preseason, I think Arkansas is the biggest threat in the West to Alabama, not Texas A&M. And I think Tennessee in the East to Georgia, not Kentucky, not Florida. You know, Kentucky went down and beat Florida. Tennessee plays Kentucky. They play them all. All that being said, do you agree with my statement that the SEC East is getting better?
Yes, I think it is getting better. Kentucky's won 10 games 2 of the last 4 years. Tennessee's getting better. Florida will get better. Of course, they live and die by Anthony Richardson, right? He was great the first game and bad the second game. I think South Carolina's coming up. So I think they're improving. Now, I don't think Missouri and Vanderbilt are worth a flip. So that keeps you down a little bit. But I think those other programs are either really good or they're on the rise. And so, yeah, I think the East is improving.
Yeah, I want to say hello to one of our listeners right now in Blaine, Washington. Got to love it. Dave Cody checking in with us on the Sidelines.live website. Jimmy Hyams, all this being said too, Josh Heupel in year 2, is he exceeding what your expectations were? Because I think he really, really gets it when it comes to the Vol culture. Because the Tennessee fans, and I talked to a lot of them, are all over this.
Yeah, he's exceeded my expectations, not by a great amount, but he has exceeded them. I thought that his offense would work in this league, but it's been better than I thought. I didn't envision them scoring 511 points and setting school record. I did not know that he could change the culture of this program as quickly as he did, and for that he deserves a lot of credit. I didn't know that he would be able to put together a staff that's as solid as this one. I like the staff a lot. So, yeah, he's exceeded my expectations. I picked them 6-6 in year 1. They won 7.
Yeah.
This year I've got him at 9 wins. Now we'll see. But overall, yes, he's done better than I thought, and they're doing really well in recruiting right now. So, yeah, I would give him a big thumbs up.
Jimmy, I know you got to get to a staff meeting, and thank you so much for your time. Let people know how they can follow you.
At Jimmy Hyams is my Twitter account. You can also go to 991thesportsanimal.com. You can find my blogs. I have posted several blogs. Post game from the pit is one of the more recent ones. So that's how you can follow us.
Look forward to having you back on. Great win. Great talking about the Vols, and really appreciate your time again.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, let's switch gears now and head down to Baton Rouge, Channel 9. 2-time Emmy Award-winning Sportscaster of the Year in the state of Louisiana, Jacques Doucet. It's not Jacques Doucet, it's Jacques Doucet. Jacques Doucet. We had a couple of we got several guys in our hunting club from Lake Charles. I'm sure you've been out there once or twice on a trip or whatever, but all LSU, diehard rabid LSU fans, like Frank Duffy, our good friend over in Atlanta, who's on with us quite a bit, part of our team. What's going on down there in Baton Rouge? We're going to get to it after this quick break with more college football talk. That's what we do. That's who we are. But we're up against a hard break. But really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And again, LSU, there is interest in that program no matter what. 3 national championships in this millennium. And you have been part of it, covering what goes on down there for a long time. So we'll get to it in just a second. Thanks to all of our listeners on the web, 680 in Atlanta, and Kicks 96.3.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Jacques, let's get right to it. LSU to this point, 1-1. That was a great game against Florida State. Not for LSU, though, because they lost, but they fought like crazy, and then they take care of Southern. And Mississippi State Saturday. You're hosting Mike Leach. That was 2 years ago, his debut game, 643 yards passing. You were there. People thought they were just going to run through the SEC. The next week, Arkansas goes and beats them. But a lot going on in Baton Rouge, and we're ready to hear it.
Yeah, Rob, well, certainly a disappointing season opener for LSU, driving 99 yards to try to tie the game against Florida State, getting the extra point blocked. LSU special teams in week one were a circus. They had a 30-yard field goal block. They fumbled 2 punts. They shanked a punt. Last week, there was really nothing LSU could do that was going to move the needle with their fan base when they're playing Southern. HBCU, who is just 8 miles away, and we cover both teams, and a lot of people getting together that knew each other, and great halftime show. But outside of the city of Baton Rouge, I don't think many people cared about that game. So this week is really the first chance since the Florida State game to kind of win back some fans' confidence that this season can be something. LSU at home against Mississippi State, a 2.5-point underdog. Like you said, 2 years ago when LSU opened up the season, KJ Costello, that was his name. I think he was on the same roster. 623 yards. Certainly one of those week one you can really overreact to type things. It reminded me of they called him Kenny Thrill at Texas A&M. He had that Thursday night game against South Carolina, and Johnny Manziel, we don't need him. This guy can win the Heisman too. And then but last year LSU goes to Mississippi State. Great game plan. I think they dropped 8 most of the game, kept the ball in front of them, and won the game. And the final score was 28-25, but really it was more lopsided than that. LSU had a 28-10 lead, I think. Big weekend for LSU. You don't want to have 2 losses before October, that's for sure. And especially with what LSU's got coming up. Florida State, Mississippi State are not 2 of the better teams on their schedule. Don't want to lose those 2.
What we brought this up earlier about Keyshawn Boutte, and Jimmy Hodge made a great point, and I agree with him. He's just a competitor. He wants to win. So nothing going on right there. I know he looked at the portal last year. He stayed. But to me, I want a guy that's all in. So you're convinced he's all LSU, and he's just a young kid just lashing out a little bit because he was frustrated?
Oh, I'm not convinced of anything yet. I mean, certainly last year, I think he was on pace to be a Biletnikoff Award finalist. And certainly he was one of the few guys that was really showing out for that LSU team that, finished 6-6 and whatnot. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that have a self-fulfilling prophecy with him, as they've seen, Jamar Chase opt out of a year, and then Derek Stingley only played 3 games last year and get an injury. They're wondering, okay, how invested is this guy? I mean, certainly he got a lot of NIL money in the offseason, a lot of talk about him leaving, go to Alabama, and was this guy a mercenary, and I need money to stay, and posing in front of very expensive sports cars and this and that. His first game was a dud against Florida State. He only caught 2 passes for 20 yards. Last week they got him the ball, and so we'll see how engaged he is this week. Certainly I think that he needs to play a big factor in this team for them to be successful, although they do have a lot of talented wide receivers. But, yeah, there's been some grumbling about Keyshawn and how invested is he? And I guess, we don't want to see LSU lose 2, 3, or 4 games. But if they do, I guess that's the question. Is he still around? Is he still giving his best?
Well, any player that this is where I draw the line. NIL money, this is what I've been warning against, and I'm not the only one. You start giving these guys all this money, how invested are they in the team? Basically, that's why I don't like the IMG academies. They're narcissist training centers. Okay. You're part of a team. And if you're not all in, get out. Jimmy, got time for some quick questions with Jacques Doucet, who is our second mobile driving on the StreamYard link with along with Dudley Dawson. I love this driver safety, so we won't keep you that long, but Jimmy Hodge, jump on in here.
Yeah, Jacques, I just wanted to get your observation on what you see going forward with the LSU receiver core, because Daniels is not your classic progressions quarterback. Normally, if that primary receiver is not open, he tends to look for an open spot to run, and, he's an outstanding runner. He's very fast, and that's where he obviously feels he's more effective. But in SEC, I think it's really important, to look at your second, third, fourth options. You have to have, I think, a dangerous vertical passing game. And how do you see that progressing? Or and do you look at LSU going with the younger Nussmeier, because he seems to have that it factor, and he is a very good passer.
Yeah, Jimmy, appreciate it. Certainly there's been a lot of talk about Jaden tucking it and running too quickly. Certainly he is an electric runner. He's going to give you that aspect, and I think that's a great example of why Miles Brennan is no longer around. They're looking for something like that, and I think there was a great I read an article today about how he has played against Mike Leach when he was at Washington State, and I think threw for 346 in a game. So he's capable of putting up big passing numbers. I think he does need to stay in the pocket a little bit more and get the ball to the wide receivers. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, has gotten a lot of great reviews against Southern this past week. He just had a real bad performance. It was pressing. It's the old case of, okay, I'm in the game, I got to make something happen, I got to show people. And he threw 2 interceptions, and the second one was, he threw it underhanded straight to the Southern guy who pick-sixed it for 94 yards. So I agree with what you're saying. He's a very lean guy. Very thin. I got a feature coming up in the next week or so. I interviewed his dad. Jaden Daniels was 5'11", 130 pounds going into his freshman year of high school. The doctor didn't want to approve him to play football because he thought it was too dangerous. But he's put on weight, but he still is a lean guy. So you just kind of wonder if he's going to tuck it and run against SEC linebackers, can he last? But LSU's got some talented wide receivers, and hopefully Daniels can get him the ball starting this weekend.
Jacques, this LSU defense, let's talk about the front seven. That's what they're known for. Some of the best defensive linemen ever. We all know Marcus Spears and Anthony McFarland. So there have been so many, Glenn Dorsey, down through the years. Without a front seven, when you've got a new coach in there, that means that you better be able to move the ball. Do you feel comfortable with this LSU defense developing throughout the season to be that good?
Yeah, I think they still have some question marks. Micah Baskerville got some more play last week. I think he was suspended, or he thought he was going to be facing a suspension, so they didn't get him as many reps before the year at linebacker. I think Mike Jones from Clemson is still kind of learning how to play on the inside and learning how to take contact and cover the tight ends across the middle and so forth. Obviously, Luke Smith, I think that he was your best player on defense in terms of, being a future NFL first-round draft pick. Freakish injury first week. He just jumps through the air to kind of celebrate. He lands and then blows out his ACL. That's terrible. They've got Mekhi Wingo, who's a defensive lineman who was on the All-SEC team from Missouri, who's playing pretty well for them. So, secondary play. They're still kind of waiting on Seven Banks, who transferred from Ohio State. He's had this knee injury. It seems like it's always one step forward, 2 steps back with him. But yeah, we'll find out this week. Mike Leach, I'm sure, is looking to prove that he's a better coach than Brian Kelly and can out-scheme him and whatnot. And it'll be throw with Will Rogers and them in Tiger Stadium, 5 o'clock kickoff. You wonder how much conditioning plays into this in terms of, backpedaling guys in and out and all that stuff. So, LSU, I think, has played pretty well defensively so far, but this will be a big test, huge test.
Quick question for you also. Max Johnson's the starter at the end of the season. He goes to A&M because he wants to play with his brother. I guess his brother could have come to LSU. From what you know, being on boots on the ground there in Baton Rouge, do you feel like Max Johnson would still be the starter if he were at LSU?
That's a good question. I've kind of thought about that because I'm wondering the timeline, because certainly Max Johnson left before LSU even played in the bowl game last year. So he was gone. So Jaden Daniels didn't make his decision to come until the spring. So I asked that in camp. I was like, is Max Johnson better than any of these guys? And I think the Johnson family is a first class. I talked to Brad Johnson, of course, the Super Bowl winning quarterback with Tampa, and Max's father. And that's just how that's a great example, Rob, how quickly things change like that. I mean, I remember interviewing them. They loved LSU, loved Coach O. Jake, that's his name. The tight end was coming, and they're all in, and then things change, and they're all out. And they're all at A&M now. And obviously, Jimbo Fisher get a lot of heat for losing to Appalachian State, and Max Johnson isn't playing. So I don't think he beats out Jaden Daniels if they're going head to head, but I think there's a good chance he would beat out the other guys. But that's a great question. But he threw 27 touchdowns last year, 6 interceptions. And Jake Peets, who I like, I talked to, I think he's a good guy, but it was a dysfunctional situation with Jake Peets as the offensive coordinator and Coach O as the head coach. So those two were banging heads all year and couldn't decide what they wanted to do. So I tip my hat to Max Johnson. Tough kid, too.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. And I'm just thinking, Zach Calzada leaves A&M. He's not even on the field at Auburn. Injury, whatever it is. This musical chair is over 4,000 kids still in the portal that hadn't been picked up. I call the portal, it's almost the island of misfit toys from the old Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer deal. I'm a quarterback who can't throw the fade route. I'm an edge rusher who's afraid to cross the line. It's crazy. It is really crazy stuff happening. But all these guys transferring, and then they go somewhere, and they're not even on the field. Jimmy, we got a couple of more minutes with Jacques Doucet, WAFB Channel 9 in Baton Rouge.
Well, you've got to think that Saturday is an absolute must win. I mean, this is non-negotiable because, in 2 weeks you start this lovely stretch at Auburn. Tennessee comes to town, at the Swamp against the Gators. Ole Miss comes to town with that high-powered offense. Bama comes in the next week. And, oh, by the way, you close out that 6-game stretch with a trip to Fayetteville.
Yeah, October really is my favorite month of the year. I mean, and to me, it's the essence of college football, and it's what I enjoy more than the national championship and the playoff, honestly. I mean, when you get those SEC teams on a fall day and it's 70 degrees and not a cloud in the sky, I mean, that to me, that's the best college football is all year. And,
Amen.
I mean, you make a great point. The schedule gets really rough for LSU. So, they go to Auburn. Auburn obviously has shown that they're nothing special. So I think LSU can win that game. But like you said, some tough games coming up for the Tigers. And I'll just say real quick, Rob, off of your point, certainly I've covered my share of guys at LSU who stuck it out. I'll bring up Nick Brossette, for example. Nick Brossette was at LSU, did not score a touchdown his first 3 years at LSU. And hangs with it, and then he finally, as a senior, rushes for over 1,000 yards, scores like 15 touchdowns or whatnot. Matt Flynn didn't start, hanging out, behind Jamarcus Russell and other people. 5th year senior, wins a national championship as the LSU quarterback. There's countless stories where guys who worked hard, eventually the man upstairs blessed them with an opportunity one day because some guy got hurt or they stuck it out and they were able to shine. And this whole thing about I'm not happy and 15 minutes later I'm bouncing, and you never find a home. I agree. I think there's cases where it works. Certainly no one's going to complain about Joe Burrow coming here, but at the same time, Joe Burrow was there 3 years, graduated, and gave LSU 2 great years. So there you go.
Yeah, and I know we got to go. Just one more question. That's my whole thing about the portal is you look at the guys that hang in there and fight, and you think about, you remember a guy, Nicky Savoy at LSU. I mean,
sure.
He's gone into the financial services industry. A friend of mine deals with him all the time. And some of the great names, like I said, we got several Lake Charles guys in our hunting club, and they were up there this past weekend. By the way, I didn't think you could take a Boston butt, brown it in the skillet for about a 10-pounder, and put the Holy Trinity, which is celery, onions, and bell pepper, and all the other magic they put in there. And I think we stopped traffic on Highway 75. It smelled, you're right. There's nothing better than 70 degrees, fall, these October games coming up, September. Even Nick Saban said the other day, quit getting all caught up in late November and in the playoff. Let's enjoy the season. Jacques, I love you saying that. And and closing comments and let people know how they can follow you, because I know you got to get to a meeting.
Well, actually, I'm just going to go do my wimpy workout. I don't have a meeting. But to your point, and also you can call me Doucet or Doucet. I got called both growing up. The news director goes, "Hey, kiddo, what's your name? What do you call yourself?" So, well, I guess I'll be Doucet. And then, sure enough, early Doucet comes along right after. I made the wrong choice. But yeah, I agree with you and all that stuff. You know, October's great, and then sometimes these playoffs lose their momentum with these large gaps. But Jacques Doucet, JEC, like it's spelled here on the screen, on Twitter, WAFB.com to follow us. Well, we're big on high school football. We're big on LSU, Southern, the Saints, all that stuff. And thanks for having me on your show today.
Hey, absolutely. Look forward to doing this again very soon. Really appreciate your time. Be careful. All right, let's switch. Let's head down to Texas. Last Friday, man, it was great. We had Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, on previewing that Texas-Alabama game. And Jimmy and I and everybody were talking with you about it. What a game for the ages. I think Texas fired a shot over the bow to the SEC. We're getting better players, and even without these incoming recruits like Arch Manning and company, we're going to play you, and we're going to play a full 60. And I had a friend of mine whose brother played at Texas told me that all of his friends at the game said it was the loudest crowd they can ever remember at Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. And everybody there, in honor of the great coach, had a can of Skol in their back pocket.
Well, I want to hear more about this Boston butt. I mean, that sounds pretty good.
Hey, listen, we got several Lake Charles guys. I call it Lake Charles lava. It had all this rice and etouffee. I mean, I didn't know you could do that with a Boston butt. We're going to all have to make sure we're serious exercising like I try to do every day, or we're going to be riding around on scooters, man. It's going to be a wild time. But it's a great time. College football, great food, and road sodas. You can't get better.
Well, you're exactly right. And I tell you, it was so great talking to you guys last Friday, and that game really, really lived up to expectations. In fact, I think it exceeded expectations because, here Texas was winning that game. And, really, if Texas could have scored a touchdown instead of kicking that field goal before giving the ball back to Alabama, they could have won that game.
Yeah.
And the Texas defense, played way, way above its game, and shutting down the offense of Bryce Young and company. And what really struck me though about the Alabama offense was they had so many penalties and made so many mental errors that when I was watching the game there in the stadium, I thought Nick Saban must be over there about to blow a gasket because there were so many, unforced errors that that Bama made. But then when you talk about the Texas defense, I mean, they played a good game against the Alabama offense.
Hold
but that one play,
we're going to take a
they
quick
needed
break.
to stop
We're going to be right back.
That last.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Brown, along with Jimmy Hodge and Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, had to cut off at the break. You were saying something about what happened at the end of the Alabama-Texas game is?
Oh, yeah. Well, the Texas defense played way above its game that whole game, and especially in the third and fourth quarter, stopping Alabama on fourth down. marching it down Texas offense marching it down the field. Should have scored a touchdown, but they had to settle for a field goal. But then Bama gets the ball back. Texas defense is holding. There's, it's third down for Alabama, but what does Alabama do? Long third down. Bryce Young, Heisman Trophy winner, runs for 20 yards. They kick the winning field goal, win the game. That's what great teams do. So, hats off to Alabama.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody saw that one coming. But the one thing, I don't know why we all forgot, they got lost in the shuffle, was Gary Patterson running that defense for Texas. The guy knows.
Amen.
He is really, really a special coach.
Well, and he is. A lot of people have said that if the Texas defense was going to falter this year, that they just might fire Coach K and he'd move right up. But I think he's pulling all. I think he's like Oz. I think he's pulling all the levers behind the curtain. And everybody in the stands was talking about that. And of course, the other thing that everybody was talking about in the stands, Rob, was Alabama knocked out Texas's number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks. So I was just reading today that the third-string quarterback, Charlie Wright, who is a redshirt freshman from Austin High School, whose high school is about a mile and a half from the UT campus, may start this week against UTSA. There's still a home game there in Austin. And, UTSA is no slouch.
No, that Jimmy's been on that one for a while because he used to live in San Antonio. So Jimmy, jump in here. That will be a fun game, and that's going to be real personal for the Roadrunners.
Yeah, I mean, when I left San Antonio, UTSA playing football, that wasn't even anything in the thought process for anybody. That was like a decade away. So it's incredible what they've been able to do in just over a decade. But I've got to say, though, I can't tell you how impressed I was with Sark's game plan, though.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to have Alabama's defense off balance from the very beginning. And, Will Anderson just looked like he was in another planet. I just never seen him out of sorts like that. And I can't tell you how impressed I was with Ewers. He looked very comfortable in that offense, and all freshman offensive line did a great job giving him time to throw the ball. And I tell you what, had he not gotten injured, I see it really tough for Alabama to win because they were really functioning smoothly. And then and Card, even though he was playing on one leg, he got injured after he went into the game. But even with one leg, I thought he was considerably better than he was at any time last year. And I think that just tells you what a factor that Sark can be as far as being able to coach quarterbacks and just how he can run an offense.
Yeah, I really agree with you, Jimmy. And, Hudson Card, every time he's taken a snap for Texas in the last 2 years, it's been disaster pretty much. And, you remember that Arkansas game last year, and he was pretty much done for the rest of the year after that. And, so he was coming in right off the bench after Ewers got hurt there in the first quarter. And you're right, he did not play this time with a deer in the headlights attitude. And, he scrambled several times, which people forget that when he played at Lake Travis High School in Austin, which is the home of Baker Mayfield and others, he was a scrambler too. So he ran for several first downs that also kept several drives alive for Texas. But, like you said, then he got his ankle sprained, and, he's still questionable for Saturday. But like I said, I read this morning that redshirt freshman Charlie Wright is taking the snaps with the first team right now.
Jimmy mentioned, Ken, so many freshmen playing on the offensive line for Texas. And then you look at what's already happening with Arch Manning having committed, the number of players that have come in, that's going to be nothing but a good thing. Texas is, I think, going to be in the SEC sooner than 2025. They are the energy level of the Texas fans. I think it got a huge boost Saturday, and the fans are looking at what's going on in recruiting, and I think they're seeing what's going to be. Hey, I think the Texas players, This is not the Big 12. I mean, Alabama, that's what we are in the SEC. Ben Troop always says the NFL is a collision league. So too is the Southeastern Conference.
Well, you're exactly right. And of course, the other big story in Texas, while that was going on, was SEC's Texas A&M being taken down by App State.
Yeah.
I mean, that was nobody could believe that after they came back to their tailgates after the Texas-Alabama game and started looking at those scores and were like, what the heck is going on? And, it became kind of a joke this whole week that, Texas A&M paid Appalachian State at $1.5 million to come down to Kyle Field and beat them.
Yeah. I mean, again, that I picked App State. I had them to cover. And I was talking with someone last week. I said, they're going to beat them because what you saw out of A&M against Sam Houston State was what they are. And here it is going into game 3. They got Miami coming to town. How big is that game for Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M? I think, I'm sorry, but I'm in business. I'm in finance. You cannot give somebody $75 million and then renegotiate it to over $90 million guaranteed. And I mean, what's he scared of? He's not scared of losing his job. He's not scared of not having any money. I mean, this is too much too soon.
I agree. And I mean, this is the funny thing that, living here in Texas, you get to learn these things. Basically, Jimbo Fisher is a state employee. So, it's like you work for the state transportation department or something like that. He is the highest paid state employee in the state of Texas at 75, 90 million, however he makes. And you're right, it's guaranteed. So for all the Aggie teeth gnashing last week about, we got to get rid of Jimbo Fisher, we got to find somebody else. Jimbo Fisher's not going anywhere, okay? The Aggies are not going to let that kind of money walk out the door. So, can you imagine? And so they're going to have to do something. I just can't imagine, though, because Jimbo was talking a pretty big game at SEC Media Days and then being ranked number 6 coming in. And, they look good on paper, but my gosh, they didn't look very good against Sam Houston State. And Sam Houston State is literally, a small town right down the road from College Station, and its big claim to fame is that's where the big state prison is. And, they didn't look very good against them. And then, like I say, everybody was checking their TV sets because honestly, nobody thought that App State would maybe cover, but definitely not beat A&M. And then the way they were pounding the ball. I mean, Rob, you saw it. App State pounding the ball on A&M in the fourth quarter. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Another one. You're out there in Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, in the Metroplex. I hate to say it, but I got to say it because it's so annoying. But you're right there. Big 12 offices there. What do you see happening? Any movement? When are we going to hear something? Probably not during the season, I wouldn't think, about Arizona and Arizona State, because I got a feeling they want them, the Big 12 does, they want that TV market.
Yeah, I can assure you that it's not going to be during the season. And, at the earliest, it might be, March, April of next year. But, the new commissioner there of the Big 12, he's a wheeler dealer. And, we talked about it a little bit a couple of weeks ago. He's from New York. He's, one of his past contracts was Jay-Z. And so if he can work with Jay-Z and the New York sports teams, I think he can handle the Big 12. And he's bringing a whole different attitude of aggressiveness and, big lights, big city to the Big 12. And, when I first met him at Big 12 Media Days in Arlington in July, my first thought was, interesting guy, but I don't know how he's going to play in, Stillwater, Oklahoma, or Manhattan, Kansas. But, I think the Big 12 schools like him because, these other schools that are going to be left behind, they don't want to be left behind with no TV money.
Yeah.
And that whole contract's going to change here in a couple of years with the Big 12. And so I think this guy is really bringing in an aggressive attitude that's going to help. And but I'll tell you one thing that I've learned about Texas and Oklahoma in this whole thing. And this they talked about this at the Big 12 media days. I mean, they kept that coming to the SEC so quiet that not even the Big 12 office knew about it, and that still has really ticked off Bob Bowlesby on his way out the door. And somebody asked him kind of what was his biggest myth leaving the door, and he said, kind of Texas and Oklahoma, leaving and not leaving a love note.
Yeah, I agree. Jimmy, we got a few minutes left for some more quick questions with Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America.
Well, we know that Texas was not able to win big since that 2009 season, no Big 12 championships, and I know they'd love to win one before they left to go to the SEC. But I'm looking at this schedule, and it looks pretty stiff. And but coming off that performance against Alabama, if they get their quarterbacks healthy, I think they're going to be pretty good. And I'm asking you if you think they, at full health, if they've got a shot to beat Oklahoma and a team that's really been surprising to me so far, TCU under Sonny Dykes. And Baylor that was a surprise loss at BYU, with BYU playing without their top two receivers. But do you think the Horns actually have a shot at the Big 12 title this year?
A shot, yes. And if Ewers was still healthy, I would give it an even better shot. But at the earliest, and this is what I read and heard from team doctors on Sunday, was the earliest he could be back isn't this great for the Texas OU game? You guys were talking about, October, how great it is in college football. Well, that's always the second Saturday in October. So the earliest that Ewers could come back is Oklahoma. And so if he comes back, and of course, what a game to come back to. And boy, Oklahoma will be coming at him as hard or even harder than Alabama did. And but I think they can hang in there, especially with the defense. Last year, Texas got out to all these big leads. The offense was so good, but then the defense would blow it. Well, if the defense can keep playing up to this kind of high level, I think there's a shot. I mean, Baylor was supposed to, the way that the media ranked it at Big 12 Media Days was Baylor 1, Oklahoma 2, Oklahoma State 3, and Texas 4. So you can take it from there.
Yeah. Ken, what did you see out of Alabama going forward that concerns you, or it's just, hey, it's a tough road environment, they got the win, and there's nothing to worry about? What's your
I don't think they have a thing to worry about. I just think it was a very, very tough road environment. I think Bryce was just off just a little bit, not a whole lot. The fact that Texas was able to shut down the running game some, but didn't shut it down all the way. And then, Bryce Young made all the clutch plays and won the game. So I don't think Alabama has a thing to worry about at all. I know the fans were pretty ticked, because they knew that they were going to get knocked out of the number one spot. But I think they'll be right up there, and it's going to be Georgia and Alabama again in the SEC media, in the SEC championship game, and it's deja vu all over again.
Yeah, and you look at it, college football now. We got just a couple of minutes left. I want to ask you this: what's going on with the Sun Belt? That success they had, Marshall winning at Notre Dame, Georgia Southern going to Nebraska. You took out Scott Frost. I mean, he's been a dead man walking for some time. I mean, really, most of his time there, it's been a case of the respirators on, the priest is in the room, and the kinfolk at his bedside. It happened. Who are they going to get at Nebraska? And can they ever, forever's a long time, but can they ever do anything to get close to what they once were? They're still the fourth winningest program in college football history. I'm talking about the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Well, and look at it this way: they play Oklahoma this weekend, We talked about, the traditional games and bringing back the classic games. I can't wait to see that game this weekend. But I don't know. I mean, I've seen all kinds of names out there, even Neil Brown from West Virginia, because apparently now he's on the hot seat after their loss. And, I think there's going to be a lot of people lined up for that job, though, because even though they've taken it on the chin, and you're right about Scott Frost, Nebraska is still one of those prime jobs that, people would love to have.
Yeah, I think Dan Campbell's their guy, Ken. I if he got offered it, the job he did at Iowa State, I think he's taken them about as far as they could go. But I've heard he's very intrigued by it, and I think he would be successful there.
See, I agree with you. Matt Campbell would do great, but I've kept thinking that Matt Campbell's going to the NFL.
Well,
wow.
Golly, I would hate to see him go there. I mean, how many college coaches that go to the NFL and it's the exact opposite? The more you win, the lower you draft. Matt Campbell, Nebraska, I'm with Jimmy, and I'm with y'all. I say they get as much money as they can, and they've got a several billion-dollar endowment. And they got Warren Buffett's a Cornhusker, too. They've got a lot of money. We got less than a minute, guys, but let me say this. Go out and give with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Been a great show today. Ken, let people know how they can follow you. We got about 45 seconds.
Sure. Just go to fwaa.org. That's the Football Writers website, and check out what's going on, and check us out on Twitter. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, look, let's do this again real soon. And Jimmy, along the line of talking about Matt Campbell, I would love to get somebody that covers Iowa State on here with us. You talk about the ceiling and all up there, what programs have ceilings, whatever, but I'm with him. I think Alabama, that's a tough win. You win games like that, that makes you closer as a team, and that gives Nick Saban all kinds of stuff to coach his team up on. And this is a guy who never takes off. He's ready to go. Hey, we'll be back tomorrow. More Sidelines as we are every Monday through Saturday, sidelines.live. We're out of here, folks.